what we're doing today is the history of Western civilization's war against the conscience. History of Western civilization's war against the conscience. So the thing that gets in the way most of your life and your joy and your pleasure is the guilt over whatever the pleasures are you're going for. Is that there's a certain amount of guilt involved in life on the scale of the spiritual entity called a human being. So what I'd like to show you is just a scale of the soul. This is using the soul. So on the highest level of using the soul, you'd have prophecy. Lower levels, maybe you'd have something called divine inspiration, which is called Ruach HaKodesh in Hebrew, divine inspiration. Down maybe halfway up is what's called enlightenment. This is what people go to India for. That means like you and the river are one, okay? You become one with the universe around you. It's really funny that people go to India for this stuff when in Judaism this is only halfway up. You know, people going for the halfway mark. Listen, it's no small thing to become one with the universe. It's a big thing, but there's whole levels beyond that, beyond one with the universe, which Judaism's more focused on, as we are a nation of prophets. Below enlightenment, you have all kinds of other stages, but what I'd like to focus on is the very bottom of the barrel, like the lowest level of the use of the soul. We all have a soul, but using the soul, the highest level is prophecy. The lowest level of using the soul is called conscience and guilt. Conscience is a little voice inside that says, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And the reason I'm doing this is because it's like a beeper on a bumper. Yeah, that's the bumper of the car behind you. Yeah, so that starts beeping around here. Beep, 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 beep. We all have inside of ourselves a beeper that says, don't go there. Everyone has that. But that's a spiritual voice. Lions don't have that. When they're about to jump on a hyena or something, when a lion's about to fly onto a water buffalo, it doesn't have a voice inside saying, don't go there, man. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. And then after it eats the lion, after it eats the water buffalo, there's not like a lion psychologist that comes over and discuss how, and the lion's like, I feel dirty. How could I have done it? They don't have that. They don't have conscience before they do what they do, and they don't have guilt after they do what they do. But human beings who do not use the soul are always relegated to conscience and guilt. It's our bottom line, like the last line of defense of the soul is, oh, you've been totally ignoring me? Okay, well, at least there's a bottom line of like wrong and right. And in that bottom line of wrong and right, in that bottom line, you will get a voice in your head saying, don't do that, don't go there, it's a wrong thing to do. That is purely spiritual. Animals don't have it, plants don't have it. Only human beings have conscience. And if you honor your conscience, you feel great. Notice every time you pass a test and you listen to that conscience and you don't hit that bumper, you feel amazing. But if you ignore the conscience, if you just do it as Nike would have you do it, if you just do it, then, you're going to hit, and there's going to be ramifications. And those ramifications are usually negative feelings. Negative feelings about yourself. Because when you don't honor your conscience, you are breaching your own red lines. These are your own red lines. Every human being, I don't care how liberal you get, I don't care if their parents told them everything's okay, will still have red lines. We're a moral being. Human beings are a moral being. And we all have red lines. And when we breach those red lines, we feel bad about it. And that's the last line of defense of the soul. Ashamed to be hanging out there. Probably 90% of the people I ever meet are hanging out there. But in my community, we are not hanging out in conscience and guilt. In my community, we are much more in the upper realms of things. We are living in a much more growth-oriented community where we are using the soul in our prayers, in our divine service, in our psalms, in our acts of loving kindness, and that's a sign of enlightenment. When you give of your own stuff to someone else, means you get it. You get that they're you, you're them. Remember to be the river? Forget being the river, be the poor guy who needs some food. And make sure you take from yours and give to him. That's a sign of enlightenment. When you're really utilizing the soul on the higher levels, you're not dealing with conscience and guilt like the rest of the world. The rest of the world's always in conscience and guilt. That's not using the soul properly. You want to climb the scale, climb Jacob's ladder, up the ladder, and start using the soul for what it was created for. And what is it created for? It's your fiber optic link out of this place. The soul is your fiber optic link to the infinite, to God, to transcendence. Without your soul, you'd have no chance to bridge the gap between finite and infinite. But God has put inside of each one of you a little spark of infinite inside of you that is called the soul, that you can now link yourself, bridge the gap of finite and infinite via the various ways that your soul calls you into being and calls you into action. Clear? Now, Western civilization has not been very happy about this. It doesn't like conscience and guilt because a couple of reasons. One thing is, if you can get rid of conscience and you can get rid of guilt, or at least get people to ignore conscience and somehow harness guilt, you can sell a lot of products. Again, if you can get people to either ignore conscience or to get rid of it altogether, meaning either I have it, I can't get rid of it, but I can ignore it and just do it, or I can get either ignore it or get rid of it, as I said, and then harness guilt. I can build empires upon it. As long as I get people to that negative emotion, then I can build worlds off of that. Whole systems, whole revolutions of, did I say revolutions? Sorry. Whole industries off of that. What do I mean? When you do something that is a breach of your own red line and you have those negative feelings, human beings don't rest well with negative feelings. When you have negative feelings, you'll notice you always do something. Each one of us has the thing we do. For some of us, we go shopping and buy a new blouse or a new outfit of some sort. For some of us, we have to go buy a new gadget, maybe something technological. Other people might go eat when they feel bad. Another person might download a new app. Another person might drink alcohol. But whatever it is you do, it will be putting dollars into the system. It will bring dollars into the system. Now, another thing, if I can get you to either get rid of conscience or to ignore conscience, it will also make you consume. That also makes you consume. Because if I'm being told, if it feels good, do it, as Coke told us for 2 years straight. You guys were probably mostly little kids at the time, but Coke went with, if it feels good, do it. Nike just got rid of the, if it feels good, it just says, just do it. And if we just do it, if you just keep doing it, I mean, imagine what your life would be like if you just did whatever felt good. Where would you wind up if you just did whatever felt good?
Probably dead in jail.
Probably dead in jail. Who knows where you'd wind up? I want to create a class action suit against these companies, saying, we just did it, and we feel really bad about it, and we want to know what you're going to do for us now. But what happens is when you just do it, it usually costs money to just do it. You can't just do it for free. If you want to just do it, just eat that, or just go, have that, or just go enjoy that, or just go. It usually, there's an entry fee for that. And then with all the guilt, you're going to go pay more money, spend more money on that as well. And let's just put in the opposite. The scariest thing for Westernism is if we were to actually embrace the conscience to have what's called soul self-esteem. If you had proper soul self-esteem and you embraced the conscience and you actually listened to the conscience, so when it said don't go there, you actually listened to it, you would be such a bad consumer. You'd be a bad consumer because you'd already feel great. Because how do we feel, guys? When you listen to your conscience and you win one of those little micro tests throughout the day, how do you feel? You feel great. And if you do it again, you feel great. You do it again, you feel great. You do it again, you feel great. You ever wonder why you don't just keep doing it? You notice that? Like you always feel great, right? You win your test, you feel great? Yeah. So why don't you just keep doing that?
So it's not enough?
It's not enough? No. Feeling great's feeling great. It's always enough. The answer is you don't recognize yourself as holy. You don't recognize yourself as holy. Now, what you guys probably think I just said was you don't recognize yourself as holy? Meaning you just don't see yourself as holy? So what is someone who just keeps doing the right thing? What do you call that person? Holy. That's a tzaddik. That's a holy person. Someone who's always doing the right thing is a holy man or a holy woman. They're a tzaddik or a tzaddikus. So you probably think what I meant by you don't recognize yourself as holy, what you probably think I meant was you don't see yourself as holy. That is not what I said. When I said you don't recognize yourself as holy, I'm being very explicit. Meaning, when you look yourself in the mirror after a bunch of good acts, you did a couple good things over and over, you won a few tests, you're feeling great. When you look yourself in the mirror, you don't recognize yourself. Human beings are very vulnerable, fragile people. Our identity is more important to us than anything. I have never seen myself that way. I've never seen myself as this holy person. And so it is, even though it's a good thing, and I'm feeling good, it's an affront to my identity. And I will sabotage that holy feeling I'm having just to get back the familiarity of how I've known myself till now. Very deep. You didn't realize that was what I was saying, did you, when I said you don't recognize yourself as holy? You thought I meant you don't see yourself as holy. So you got to go to town and mess it up. No. It's that you don't recognize yourself. Who is that? And we are so fragile in our identification of who we are that we'd rather sabotage our holiness and do a couple wrong things and mess ourselves up for the familiarity of our own identity. Wild, huh? But now you understand the mechanics of why you sabotage yourself. I recognize you people as holy. And I think you know that. That's why I do what I do. It's not like I spend my morning learning with all these holy people in Mea Sharim and then I come into Aish to my non-holy people. The only reason I am in here is because I believe you're holy. I see you as holy. I hold that for you. And it hurts me to think that there's people out there who don't feel they're holy. Try seeing yourself as holy. Everyone repeat after me. I'm holy.
Holy.
Yeah. Try it again. I'm holy. I do the right things. Try that. I do the right things. Say it. I do the right things. Consistently. I do the right things consistently. Say it. I do the right things consistently. I am a holy person. And get used to that until you recognize yourself. I don't recognize myself as not holy. So I can't really get involved in behavior that's not holy because that would be my identity crisis. I would have an identity crisis, getting involved in things that aren't holy. That would be like a major identity crisis for me. I wouldn't know what to do. Just like someone else might not know what to do with himself or herself when she's being holy. We're very fragile, but we're not dumb. Let's get smart and start learning how to see ourselves properly. You know those mirrors in like fun houses that like show you like it might be like it makes you gigantically wide and like this tall, and then there's another one that makes you like super long and like this thin. We have to start fix our mirror. We have to work on our mirror to see a holy person when we look inside. A person who does the right things consistently and feels good. You put Prozac out of business. Western civilization has been trying to strip us of the holiness because holiness doesn't sell. Holiness just doesn't sell. I think probably the only thing I ever buy is bike parts, just to keep my bike running well. I buy gas to get myself to the surf spots and to the bike parks that I ride in. And the only other thing I'll ever buy is beer. I don't buy clothes. I mean, I buy clothes for my wife and daughters and my sons, but I don't buy my own clothes. I'm wearing the same clothes. I'll wear the same clothes for years and years and years because I just don't have any connection to that. I'm a non-consumer. Westerners realized that we'd be non-consumers if we really saw our sanctity, if we really saw our holiness. And for various other reasons, which we're not going to get into right now, they set out to get rid of the conscience. The original move in getting rid of the conscience was idolatry. Idolatry worked in a way that whenever you felt guilty about ignoring the conscience, you would offer something to that particular god that was connected to whatever the offense was. So if it were a sexual offense, you would offer a offering to a god of fertility or something. If it were a financial offense, it would be a god regarding financial well-being, a god of rain, maybe. Idolatry was really just to assuage guilt, a way to pay off deities that would somehow wipe your slate clean for whatever transgression you might have done. It was, at least in this area of the world, it became no longer cool, and the Jews had moved in a major way. And we were saying, no, you got to listen to your conscience. And if you're feeling bad about the guilt, you got to do teshuvah. Listen to the conscience. Made a mistake, do teshuvah. Do teshuvah means you have to repent. You have to come back to God. You got to do the process. It's usually a 4-step process to come back to God. 4-step process is stop, say, do, commit. Stop, say, regret, commit. 4 steps. Stop whatever it was you're doing. Say what you did to God, only to God. Regret, express that you regret having done it, and commit to a future of not doing it again. Stop, say, regret, commit. Try that. Stop, say, regret, commit. Commit. One more time. Stop, say, regret, commit. One more time. Stop, say, regret, commit. That's the process. Cleans your slate. I suggest you do it before you go to bed at night. Why start a new day with yesterday's stuff? Before you go to bed at night, clear your conscience, clear yourself, Stop, say, regret, commit. Sit on the edge of your bed. Stop. I mean, obviously stopped if you're already in your bedroom. You know, whatever you did wrong that day is not so available at this point. So stop, say, regret, commit. Okay, conscience. And as far as the guilt, loosen the conscience. When you make mistakes, we all make mistakes, then you do teshuvah for the guilt. Anyway, but later times came the Industrial Revolution, and eventually you had the same desire to get out of conscience and guilt, and different ways were created, and one of those ways was a famous way that we all got to learn about in school called Darwin. Darwin had a theory that we are just advanced algae. That you are just advanced algae. It was algae, and then it grew into a fish, and then it grew legs and became like a reptile, and then it became, I don't know, maybe a bird. I forgot the order. It became a bird. I think it became a bird and then a reptile, and then it became eventually a sheep or a goat or a lion, and then it became a monkey. I don't remember this. I actually did study paleontology at one point or another, but I can't remember my studies in university 25 years ago. But eventually it became a monkey, and then eventually that monkey became a man. And my best friend growing up was actually the missing link. Yeah. I grew up with a guy who went through puberty when he was 9 years old. He had a full beard at 12. He was buying us beer at 12 years old. Yeah. So we called him the missing link between the monkeys and the humans. But you realize what it does here. Because if you're having conscience and guilt, then you're insane, because you're just algae. You're just a very fancy piece of algae called a human being. But you see how it does the trick? His theory is ludicrous. It should have made people just say, oh, that's cute. But instead it got embraced. Why did the Westerners embrace this idea? No one else embraced it, just Westerners. Because it totally gets you off the hook. It's the new Jesus, in a way. It gets you off the hook. You don't have to worry about it. Because it's just your own imaginations that there's anything to feel guilty about. You're just advanced algae. I asked one of the top paleontologists in the world. Somehow I got to be in his class, university. Top paleontologist in the world. I went in, I liked him a lot, and I went in to meet him quite a few times, but it was the last day of the year. Just went in to say goodbye. And I said to him, by the way, with all the massive missing pieces of the, from algae to man, do you really believe this stuff? And he says to me, it's all we've got. And I said, what do you mean it's all we've got? He says, if it's not this, it's God. So this is all we've got. So I was an atheist at the time, but I said to him, you're more religious than my rabbi if you believe in this stuff. That's what I said. Time went on, and eventually, I'm going to skip all the way up to the modern European. And the modern European had a major issue of conscience and guilt. Of course, you had all the Darwinists and stuff. But what happened next was a man who truly understood Judaism by the name of Adolf Hitler came along, and he, if you read his manifesto Mein Kampf, he said that I am here to rid the world of conscience. It is a Jewish invention. Adolf Hitler understood exactly who we are. And his theory was, if I just get rid of all the Jews, then the world will be free from the shackles of conscience. And once you're free of the shackles of conscience, you're free of the shackles of guilt. You're off the hook. Those were his words. He even said that if he left one Jewish baby, that he just didn't find it in a basement somewhere, from there it would start again. That's what he said. He felt that we were the embodiment of the soul and what comes from the soul, which is conscience and guilt. And these are his words. He knew who we were. But that was another move. After World War II, and now the Industrial Revolution was now like, the world of industry was just booming, big cars, and Cadillacs, and Chevys, and industry in America was booming. Japan built their industry, and Germany is now, German engineering is building, and it's just a world of consumption. So what are we going to do now? What's left to deal with the conscience? Hitler didn't succeed. The Jews lived on. Conscience and guilt became a factor. And so the next move was medication. It was medication. See, as long as I'm having this and that's, by the way, another giant industry, but as long as I ignore my conscience, as the advertisement says I should, just do it. If it feels good, do it. So as long as I ignore my conscience, well, now I'm stuck feeling guilty. And they actually created medications that make you feel better. So you can actually just go ahead and do whatever you want, and there will be medication to make you feel better. Now, of course, there's regular medication like alcohol, and there's regular medication like wheat, and there's other medications like Tylenol and Advil. Those make you feel pretty good. Eat 2 or 3 of them, make you feel pretty good. There's those kind of medications, but they actually were able to design medication that genuinely make you feel much happier, even though you've made some pretty bad moves. And so what that move was, and that led to into the year 2000 and further, was a medication to get rid of the conscience and guilt. But right around 2005, the society flipped into a brand new mode of getting rid of conscience and guilt. And that has been going on for the last 10 years. It's now 2015. And this has been a whole new wave that everyone's been jumping on. And that is that there is nothing wrong. A philosophical move. This is a philosophical move that there's no such thing as wrong. In fact, it's politically incorrect to make a statement of something being wrong. And it has been like a wave that has really taken over the planet. There are professors who've lost their tenure for stating opinions on what they felt was wrong. There was a show that was netting $70-80 million a month called Duck Dynasty. Duck Dynasty. It was taken off the air because in a GQ magazine interview, the head of the Duck Dynasty stated something was wrong. He said something was wrong. He was actually quoting the Bible. He didn't mention that in the interview. But he just stated his opinion, quoting the Bible. He's a Christian man. Quoted the Bible, said something was wrong. Next, what?
What did he say?
It was a comment about homosexuality. And boom, it was off the air. It was off the air just like that. We're living in a generation where saying something is wrong is wrong. Saying something is wrong is wrong.
Let's just say sorry on Twitter.
Oh, you're allowed to say sorry, yeah, on Twitter. Yeah, sorry is like fine, That's the world we live in now. It's been a 10-year kind of revolution, as big as Darwinism. It's as big as the 60s. It's as big as Christianity. It's as big as any of the moves. It's as big as the meds. It's the new move so that people feel better. Better about just being consumers and indiscriminately fulfilling their desires. And this has been a brief history on Western civilization's war against the conscience. But also the whole introduction to what we spoke about was just the key to joy, the key to happiness. And the key to happiness is doing the right things consistently. You've been given a soul, use it. It is your fiber optic link from the finite to the infinite. It is your bridge to bridge the gap between being born into a physical world that's really a spiritual world, but you can't see the spiritual world. So you've been given a soul to kind of be a guiding light to get through this gauntlet, this temple of doom. We have a flashlight. That is the soul. Use the soul. The soul will take you on the most amazing rides in life if you just build it through Torah and divine service, kindness. And if you are not going to use the soul and you're going to just be relegated to the bottom of the barrel of the soul, so certainly conscience and guilt are a safety net. A safety net, listen to the conscience. If you blew it and you felt the guilt, do the tshuva, 4 steps. Stop, say, regret, commit. Say the words, get yourself back in gear. Get yourself back on your feet. How quick can you get up? No one who hits someone's bumper puts the car in park. And that's crazy. Can you imagine landing on some guy's bumper? You know, you got your bumper on this guy's Maserati. And you're like, ooh, you know what, when you hit someone's bumper, you kind of like look around and make sure no one saw. But imagine you hit the bumper, and you're like, and then instead of pulling out the bumper, you put it in park.
I've seen that before.
You just put it in park right on his bumper. No one does that. But how many of us, we don't listen to the conscience, we hit the bumper, and we put it in park? Because now that I'm already this low, now that I'm that lame, that I did such a dumb move, now that I'm that dumb guy, or that dumb girl, or that dirty person who did the wrong things, so, who am I to, get up? Maybe I should just take in, the whole Vegas smorgasbord now. The answer is no, you get up. Honor the conscience. You make mistakes, you're feeling bad about it, do the tshuva. Tshuva is getting off the bumper and parking in the right place. Stop, say, regret, commit. We are the Jewish people. That is our job. It is not politically correct to talk about wrong and right. Conscience is, as Hitler said, supposed to be a figment of the Jews' imagination. But no, it is your key to joy. Because if you honor your conscience, and you start to recognize yourself as a holy person, if a holy person who does the right things consistently becomes your identity, you're going to have an amazing life. You surround yourself with people who are also like-minded. What do I mean by like-minded? Like-minded in that they also see themselves as holy. You have a whole community, whole society of people who do the right things. It bolsters you, bolsters your kids, keeps your family on the up and up. You want to surround yourself with people who are doing the right things as much as possible. Your peer group will have a big effect on you. So you want to put yourself in position with people who are doing the right things. Honoring the conscience, doing tshuva if you feel any guilt. It's the Jewish way. It's the way forever. And you may not be very popular in our society that says, there's no such thing as wrong. But in the end, they're fooling themselves. And they all have red lines, and they think that they can somehow assuage it by saying there's no such thing as conscience or guilt. But there is. We all know that to be the case. And may we all be blessed. I bless us all. May we all be blessed to honor our souls. Thank you very much.
Thank you.